What if I told you your worst Monday morning wouldn't even make it to lunchtime in Tudor England? You wake in 1547 to a world designed to kill you by breath, by mouthful, by rumor, and every kindness has a knife under it. Tonight we will peel back a day that should not be survivable. A bedroom crawling with plague, breakfast brewed in filth, a town square that applauds strangulation, doctors who bleed you to death, laws that execute you for existing, a court of smiling assassins, a marriage that sells your body like cattle, a faith that flips to flames by royal whim, and a war that drafts you as fertilizer for someone else's field. If you want the whole truth, as ugly and unforgettable as smoke in your lungs, hit subscribe now, because this is only the first breath. Your bedroom is a fever nest disguised as shelter, a single low room where animals steam in the corner and a blanket of wood smoke combs your lungs raw. The window is a square of oiled cloth that mildews instead of opening. The mattress is a sack of last year's straw laced with lice and whispers from houses where bells tolled 3 times at midnight. The rushes on the floor do not absorb sin, only urine, vomit, and the secrets of sick men. You pinch a flea, it pops like a seed. You turn and the pig grunts. The baby coughs, the fire breathes, and you swear you hear the straw sigh back. Breakfast is a wager with your own intestines ale because water is a sermon preached by dead rats. The brew is weak, cloudy, and occasionally enchanted with mold that paints saints on the inside of your eyelids. Bread that dreams. It is white, has been cut with chalk and powdered bone until your teeth taste like a graveyard. Cheese sweats milk, protests. A sliver of meat smells faintly of last Tuesday. You swallow anyway because hunger is a judge with a short temper, and surviving to noon requires pleading guilty to small poisons. You follow the smell of onions and damp wool to the market square and arrive at a school where the alphabet begins with rope. The stocks are crowded. The jeers are lessons, and a boy learns to throw an egg before he learns to sign his name. The hanging is not a snap, but a slow untying of breath, a theater of purple faces and loosened shame. Sometimes there is a drawing and a quartering, a punctuation of iron and ash across the town's grammar. You clap because clapping is cheaper than suspicion and louder than your own pulse. You feel unwell, of course you do, and the barber surgeon welcomes you with a smile sharp as his razor. He will drain the bad humor from your veins until your feet forget the floor. He will apply leeches like punctuation marks to a sentence that already ends in a period. If that fails, mercury will lend your tongue a silver stutter and your bones a tremor like dice in a cup. Trepanation is a key seeking a lock. The skull was never meant to grant. In this house, the cure is an accomplice, and the instrument tray is an obituary in waiting. The law is a hedge maze sharpened into knives, more than 200 ways to die, inked by men who sleep soft and wake certain. Take at night and you are a shadow fit for a rope. Take a rabbit and you are treason's apprentice. Speak sideways about the king's breath, the queen's womb, the calendar of his days, and you are already rehearsing your last words. The judge and the jury dine at the same table that ordered your arrest. Torture is a quill that writes confessions in bone. Innocence is a rumor you do not have the money to prove. The royal court is a garden of smiling vipers under painted ceilings. The dance cards are indictments, the poems are daggers wrapped in velvet, and every gift is a trap engraved with gratitude. Flatter too brightly, and you are seducing. Flatter too dimly, and you are rebelling. The king's favor changes like weather over peat bogs, and men become statues in the morning and headless anecdotes by supper. Spies listen through holes that pretend to be roses. The safest costume is invisibility. Yet even a shadow can be accused of stepping on a royal toe. Marriage is not a veil, but a receipt. Your body is entered on a ledger between a field in the west and 2 milk cows. Mothers cry in kitchens while fathers bargain with straight faces and soft hands. On the wedding night, the crowd escorts you to the bed, laughing, advising, appraising, and for a moment the candles feel like eyes. Afterward, there is no afterward. Divorce belongs to saints and kings. You belong to your husband's household inventory. If he dies, you become a line item that migrates sideways to a cousin with opinions. Faith is a lantern. The crown swings like a weapon. Today, Latin is treason, and tomorrow it is sacrament. A missed genuflection is evidence. A wrong Bible is kindling, a whispered prayer is a fuse. A neighbor will accuse a neighbor to inherit a window. An enemy will call a widow a witch for owning a cat with yellow eyes. Trial by water offers two acquittals, fire above or water below. And either way, the parish gains a story. Belief becomes posture more than prayer. A choreography performed so nervously, the floorboards memorize your steps. The army does not recruit you, it collects you. One moment you are mending a fence, and the next you are a number in a lord's margin, a body borrowed against a debt of pride. Your spear is second-hand and remembers a previous owner's last mistake. Hardtack is a stone that pretends to be bread, and the salted meat argues with your teeth. Dysentery outranks the enemy, and the surgeon's saw sings a thin hymn over mud. When pay fails to appear, the word mutiny arrives, and with it a reminder that ropes travel well. The clever man deserts, the unlucky man is made into an example. The living man learns to be quiet when he breathes. Night falls in Tudor England like a lid on a coffin. The fire is never fully out because coaxing new flame costs coin and patience you don't have. Smoke curls thick enough to sting the eyes, and you cough yourself awake even as exhaustion pulls you down. Shadows in the corner lengthen into shapes your mind insists are rats. Though sometimes they are worse, your own uncle raving in fever, babbling psalms through cracked lips. The room is not a refuge, but a waiting room, and every breath feels like a borrowed one. The plague has no preference, but rumor insists it loves the poor most. You hear stories of whole streets silenced by dawn, of carts rolling with bells that toll for the dead. If the sickness enters your house, the rushes on the floor soak up the black bile just as easily as spilled ale, and there is no line between the living and the contaminated. People hang herbs from rafters, burn vinegar in bowls, whisper charms against evil air. But the truth is, once the cough begins, the only question is how quickly the gravedigger will find you. Even if disease spares you hunger, sharpens its teeth at every window, harvests fail with the whim of the sky. Grain prices double overnight. A crust of bread becomes ransom for your own body. Families eat broth so thin it is more memory than meal. The wealthy feast, but their meats crawl with flies, and their wines conceal vinegar's bite. Famine is democracy at its cruelest. Everyone suffers just differently. For the poor, it is gnawing emptiness. For the rich, a banquet laced with invisible poisons. And yet survival demands laughter, twisted, brittle laughter. Children kick skulls dug from shallow graves like toys. Women trade gossip over executions as if comparing recipes. Men wager on which condemned will die fastest. The grotesque becomes routine. A hanging is just another Tuesday, a burning another Sunday sermon. What shocks us today was then the glue of community entertainment and education wrapped together with screams as the soundtrack. In the marketplace, punishment and commerce stand shoulder to shoulder. One stall sells onions, another displays a man in stocks, his face painted with rotten food hurled by passing hands. The mingled smells of livestock, leather, blood, and human waste blur into a single stench. Here, morality is public theater. Fail to cheer loud enough, and the actors on the scaffold may be joined by you tomorrow. The crowd is both jury and accomplice, intoxicated by the ritual of cruelty. Children are not shielded, but trained by these spectacles. A boy of 10 watches a traitor disemboweled and laughs because his father laughs. A girl learns that mercy is weakness when her mother spits on a thief in irons. Trauma is the curriculum, and fear the diploma. Generations grow not horrified, but accustomed, their innocence pressed out like grapes until all that remains is a vintage of suspicion and obedience. The church bells summon you, but not always for prayer. Sometimes they call you to denounce a neighbor, sometimes to witness a heretic's last sermon before the flames. Faith is weaponized by shifting monarchs, Edward's Protestant zeal, Mary's Catholic vengeance, Elizabeth's precarious balance, and the people's souls are pulled back and forth like sails in contrary winds. To worship sincerely is dangerous. To worship falsely is safer, provided you never stumble in the choreography. Fear seeps into the walls of your home. You lower your voice when speaking of rulers, for even timbers have ears. Servants repeat what they hear, for coin children misunderstand and carry words outside, and suddenly a jest about the king's appetite becomes treason. The silence becomes heavy, a silence you practice like a craft. The more invisible you are, the longer you live. But invisibility is exhausting, and one mistake can illuminate you in the worst possible light. Those who stumble into court life discover a stage built on paranoia. Every corridor whispers, every glance is weighed, every compliment measured like poison in a vial. One day you are favored, the next you are condemned. Men like Thomas More, Thomas Cromwell, or Anne Boleyn remind you that love and loyalty to the crown mean nothing when suspicion hardens into verdict. Heads roll faster than roses bloom, and even the courtiers' smiles seem carved with the knowledge that tomorrow they could be decorations on London Bridge. Marriage offers no sanctuary. At 12, a girl may be pledged at 14, a boy bound, and from then on, their futures are currency in negotiations they never witnessed. The ceremony strips choice from both bride and groom. Obedience is promised. Ownership is transferred, and the bedchamber becomes a stage for public proof. Love is not a factor. Affection is irrelevant. What matters is lineage, property, and alliance. For many, the wedding day is not the beginning of life together, but the end of any life that was truly theirs. The bedding ritual is perhaps the cruelest punctuation to a day of bargaining. Guests, family, neighbors, even strangers, escort the bride and groom to the chamber, peel away their clothes with jokes as sharp as knives, and wait just outside the door for proof of consummation. Privacy does not exist. Dignity is a luxury no one can afford. For the couple, this is not intimacy, but theater, an initiation into a lifetime of surveillance and obedience. The laughter outside masks the iron truth: you are property. First person second. Should a woman's husband die, her freedom is a mirage. She does not reclaim her dowry, her children, or her choices. She becomes an inheritance herself, shuffled to a brother-in-law or cousin who views her as an obligation rather than a companion. If she resists remarriage, whispers of witchcraft or rebellion soon follow. The grave is often the only release from marital chains, and even in death, her body may be judged for signs of fertility, loyalty, or supposed sin. Religion provides no comfort, only roulette with fire is the prize. Under Edward, the Latin Mass is outlawed, and priests who refuse change meet the scaffold. Under Mary, Protestants burn in slow agony, their bodies hissing as green wood smolders. Under Elizabeth, suspicion shifts like tides, and even cautious neutrality is dangerous. To pray too loudly is zealotry, too quietly heresy. Faith becomes camouflage, each gesture rehearsed, each phrase rehearsed, each breath measured. Witchcraft accusations bloom like weeds in this poisoned soil. Own a cat and you are suspect. Heal with herbs and you are suspect. Age into wrinkles and you are suspect. Beauty itself is suspicious. Poverty suspicious, prosperity suspicious. The test is a paradox thrown into water. If you float, you are guilty. If you sink, you are innocent but drowned. Stones crush chests, ropes bind limbs, and the silence of the grave becomes the only testimony that matters. The battlefield is no escape. Recruitment is abduction disguised as service. You are seized from your village, handed a pike, and pointed toward an enemy equally bewildered. Your armor is looted from the fallen, your rations molded, your boots ill-fitting. Training is non-existent. Instinct and terror are your instructors. Death does not arrive in glorious charges, but in the dysentery that sweeps camp, the infection that festers in a scratch, the frostbite that steals fingers before dawn. Commanders stand apart, nobles whose titles are bought rather than earned. They consult manuals of Roman wars and order charges across muddy fields, convinced history will bend to their will. Soldiers die in heaps while the officers remain distant, their pride unscathed even as bodies rot in ditches. Strategy is an afterthought. Obedience is paramount. The battlefield is less a contest of skill than a lottery of survival, and few hold winning tickets. Pay is promised but rarely delivered. Wages vanish into the treasuries of kings and mistresses, while veterans return home, maimed, penniless, and forgotten. Many turn to banditry, their only profitable skill, the violence drilled into their bones. Others drink themselves into oblivion, haunted by screams that visit in dreams. The kingdom reaps the harvest of broken men sowing seeds of desperation that feed more crime, more punishment, more executions. The cycle is relentless. For those who desert, the penalty is exemplary horror. Captured deserters are whipped, branded, and hanged as lessons to others. The spectacle feeds the same hunger as executions in town squares, fear disguised as entertainment. Yet desertion remains the soldier's best hope, the only chance to slip back into obscurity. To vanish into woods and fields is to gamble on freedom, knowing discovery means death, but success means a breath unchained from command. The royal autopsy of Spain's Charles II would one day reveal a body so broken it seemed to confirm every whispered curse. But in Tudor England, no autopsy is needed to see the curse of power. It is etched in the smoke-stained lungs of peasants, the trembling hands of patients poisoned by mercury, the scarred foreheads branded by law. The dynasty rules not through majesty, but through the quiet arithmetic of suffering, where each subject is an expendable number in the ledgers of survival. When night circles back, you lie again on straw that remembers too much, beneath rafters that drip with smoke, beside family whose coughs measure the hours. You close your eyes and whisper thanks if the day has not claimed you. Survival is not a triumph, but a reprieve. A pause before tomorrow's lottery of death begins anew. In Tudor England, every dawn is a question, and every dusk an answer written in ash. Imagine the silence of a Tudor village at night, broken only by the bark of dogs and the whisper of wind through unshuttered holes for windows. That silence is not peace, but dread. It hides the cough of sickness, the footsteps of watchmen, the shuffle of thieves. Even the stars above seem cold, distant judges over lives so fragile that one fever, one rumor, one wrong word can snuff them out. Night is a reminder that you are never beyond reach. The homes themselves are prisons of poverty. Walls of wattle and daub crack in winter winds. Roofs sag with thatch alive with vermin. The rushes on the floor rot as fast as they are replaced. The fire is smoky, the air heavy, the stench constant. To be indoors is to suffocate slowly, to be outdoors is to risk exposure to the endless rain and biting chill. Comfort is a fantasy reserved for paintings, not reality. Clothing offers no refuge either. Woolen garments itch and stiffen with sweat and filth, rarely washed more armor against cold than against disease. Underwear is a luxury often worn until it falls apart. Parasites nest in seams, and children grow accustomed to scratching until blood marks their skin. Each layer is a reminder that survival is measured not in luxury, but in the thin barrier between flesh and frost. Food is a constant gamble. The poor stretch thin broths and stale loaves until they are tasteless shadows of nourishment. The rich dine on roasts that reek from days in open air, sauces that mask decay, wines adulterated with lead. No one is safe. Even banquets in great halls are laced with invisible death. The illusion of abundance is as dangerous as the reality of want. Water, the very essence of life, is a river of poison. Wells run dark with refuse, streams choke with carcasses, rivers swirl with filth. To drink is to wager with dysentery, to refuse is to collapse from thirst. Ale is safer, but even it ferments into madness, sparking visions mistaken for divine or devilish messages. Children learn to sip bitterness before they can walk steadily. The liquid sustains, but it also condemns. The justice system sharpens every edge of fear. Trials are performances with endings preordained. A whispered accusation becomes fact. Torture supplies the confession, and confession supplies the verdict. The wheel turns, the rack stretches, the thumbscrews crush. Innocence is irrelevant. Guilt is useful. Execution is not merely punishment, but theater reminding all who watch that power answers to no higher law than its own preservation. Families are not sanctuaries, but bargaining tables. A daughter is weighed against land, a son measured in labor, a wife valued in dowry. Affection has little role. Obligation rules. Parents exchange promises over children's futures with the same detachment as trading livestock. Love becomes rebellion, desire, a dangerous indulgence. In this world, even kinship is another currency. The church casts shadows longer than it spires. Monks and priests shift allegiances to survive, parishioners follow with bowed heads. The holy text changes not by revelation, but by decree of monarchs. Saints are celebrated one decade, reviled the next. Sacred images are smashed, then repainted, then smashed again. Faith is no anchor but a storm, and believers are tossed from shore to shore without choice. Childhood is brief, often ending as soon as hands can hold tools. Boys work fields. Girls tend fires, both endure burdens meant for grown bodies. Play is scarce, laughter quickly swallowed by chores. Illness and accidents carry many before adolescence. Those who survive learn early that dreams are dangerous luxuries easily crushed by hunger, toil, or decree. The innocence of children is not protected but consumed. And still amid all this, superstition blooms. Amulets against the evil eye dangle from necks. Charms of bone and feather are tucked under pillows. Wise women whisper cures only to risk the noose for witchcraft. The unseen is blamed for misfortune, the supernatural feared more than the mundane poisons in bread and water. Fear becomes faith. Faith becomes fear. And the circle tightens with every passing year. Gossip in Tudor England is not idle chatter. It is a weapon honed sharper than any blade. A neighbor's whisper about your absence at church. A servant's tale of words muttered in sleep. A rival's accusation of heresy. Each can spiral into trial, torture, and execution. Words travel faster than disease, and they kill just as surely. To speak freely is to gamble with your own neck. The market square is both heart and gallows of the town. Here, bread is sold beside the stocks, laughter mixes with screams, and deals are struck under the watchful eyes of guards. Commerce and cruelty intertwine until they are indistinguishable. The same hands that weigh grain also hurl stones. The same mouths that haggle also jeer at the condemned. Life and death are transacted side by side. The monarch looms above all, not as protector but as predator. His will defines crime. His suspicion writes the law. Henry VIII grows corpulent and paranoid, his moods as dangerous as armies. Elizabeth smiles while her spies feed her whispers of disloyalty. Kings and queens demand devotion, but devotion is never enough. To serve faithfully is to balance on a blade where one misstep plunges you into disgrace or death. Spies nest everywhere. Courtiers employ servants as informants. Nobles bribe each other's grooms. Even the church recruits children to repeat prayers overheard at home. No corner is private, no prayer unmonitored, no laugh unnoticed. The walls themselves seem to breathe with secrets. In this climate, trust evaporates. Even family bonds are suspect. To survive is to live as your own jailer, silencing yourself before anyone else can. Entertainment is stained with blood. Masks and pageants cloak political daggers, dances become declarations of alliance, and a wrong partner chosen in jest may spell treason. Poetry is read with double meanings, music played with hidden loyalties. Joy itself is dangerous, for too much merriment in the wrong company can be twisted into sedition. Every feast is a trap disguised as celebration. Education is scarce, and knowledge itself can condemn. To own the wrong book, to quote the wrong scholar, to study in a forbidden tongue, all risk charges of heresy. Learning is chained by politics with truth, shifting according to the crown's whim. The greatest wisdom is not to know, but to pretend not to. Ignorance becomes a shield, and silence the highest scholarship. Women bear burdens heavier than their dowries. Expected to obey fathers, then husbands, then sons, they move through life as shadows attached to men. Those who step outside these lines, speaking boldly, choosing love, refusing roles, are branded as witches or madwomen. Their voices are drowned in laughter that hides cruelty, in sermons that sanctify subjugation, and laws written by men who fear the power of their defiance. The body itself becomes an enemy. Teeth rot without dentistry, skin breaks under constant scratching, lungs wheeze from smoke-filled huts. Life expectancy is short, and by 30, most have endured enough illness, famine, and grief to appear twice their age. Every ache is a reminder that death lingers near, waiting for the smallest invitation. The flesh is not armor but a crumbling wall, and yet hope stubbornly survives. Lovers steal glances across markets, children chase each other in mud songs, rise in taverns despite the stench. Humanity clings to laughter even when fear is thick as smoke. This resilience does not erase the horror but makes it bearable, reminding us that even in Tudor England, people reached for light, however faint. It is this spark that makes their suffering all the more haunting. By now, one day in Tudor life has shown its fangs: sickness in the home, poison in the cup, cruelty in the square, betrayal in the court, tyranny in the law. To live here is to walk a tightrope across a pit of knives, knowing the rope frays with every step. The marvel is not that so many died young, but that anyone lived long enough to tell the tale. The architecture of Tudor towns reflects their peril. Narrow alleys choke with refuse. Houses lean drunkenly toward each other. Gutters spill filth where children play. Rats flourish in these corridors, their tiny claws scratching a constant percussion under the lull of human voices. Disease follows them like a shadow, and every corner holds the memory of past outbreaks. The very streets are conspirators against their inhabitants. Winter deepens the misery. Frost creeps through walls, water freezes in buckets, and fires sputter with damp fuel. Families huddle together for warmth, bodies pressed so close that sickness moves from one to another without effort. Fingers blacken with frostbite, toes drop away like brittle twigs. Survival in winter is not about thriving, but about holding on until the thaw, praying the hunger doesn't devour you first. Summer offers no reprieve. Heat magnifies the stench of refuse, quickens the rot of food, and fuels outbreaks of plague. Flies swarm endlessly, crawling into wounds, bread, and mouths. Wells turn stagnant, their surfaces shimmering with oily rainbows of decay. What should be a season of life is instead a carnival of infestation, proving that in Tudor England, even nature conspires against survival. Music drifts through taverns, thin threads of joy stitched into nights heavy with ale and smoke. Ballads recall kings and saints, wars and loves, but beneath every tune lies an undercurrent of longing for freedom, for safety, for a tomorrow less cruel than today. Taverns are refuges of noise where laughter drowns out the silence of fear, if only for an hour. Yet fights break out easily, knives flash, and merriment bleeds into violence. Executions punctuate the calendar with grim regularity. Each month brings new victims: thieves, heretics, rebels paraded before crowds eager for spectacle. The condemned often speak last words, some pleading, others defiant, a few silent in despair. Their deaths are woven into memory, their heads displayed on bridges, their ashes scattered as warnings. For children, these are lessons; for adults, reminders. Fear is the true ruler, and the scaffold its throne. The monarchy's paranoia infects all layers of society. Courtiers learn to flatter without conviction, nobles maneuver with daggers hidden in compliments. Commoners bow lower and speak softer. The king's gaze is both blessing and curse, capable of raising a man in the morning and condemning him by nightfall. Life at court is a masquerade where the mask must never slip, for the face beneath is always guilty. Festivals mirror this duality. Public celebrations of harvest or royal weddings dazzle with color and music, but lurking beneath is the presence of guards, the hush of suspicion, the reminder that joy is permitted only when sanctioned by authority. Even dancing becomes performance for the crown, each step a declaration of loyalty. The merriment hides the iron, but everyone feels its weight. Across the countryside, superstition and faith entwine like thorned vines. People consult wise women for charms, wear relics against evil, and mutter spells over crops. The church condemns these practices, yet cannot erase them, for they are rooted in desperation. When survival itself is uncertain, any promise of protection, however dubious, is seized. Belief becomes a currency of hope traded freely even as it risks accusation. Inheritance of fear is the truest legacy. Children grow up mimicking the cautious gestures of parents, learning to bow at the right moments, to silence questions, to smile when others are condemned. This generational training ensures compliance, making rebellion unthinkable. The cycle of submission is more enduring than any dynasty, more powerful than any law, for it is carved into the marrow of survival itself. As midnight approaches, the day closes like a fist. Fires burn low, shutters creak, prayers whisper into darkness. You lie again on straw muscles, aching, ears pricked for coughs that might mean plague, or footsteps that might mean accusation. Your chest rises and falls, a rhythm uncertain, a gamble renewed. To awaken tomorrow is not guaranteed. In Tudor England, survival is not life, it is luck dressed as endurance. Dawn returns not with promise, but with threat. Roosters crow over alleys still wet with night's refuse, bells toll for mass, and already the town stirs toward its rituals of labor, suspicion, and spectacle. To survive another morning is a fragile triumph. Though you know the cycle only resets, hunger waits, sickness lingers, and the scaffold stands ready. The monarchy's decrees ripple outward like stones cast into a poisoned pond. One command alters worship, another redefines treason, and lives are upended overnight. The people adapt with grim obedience, bending their beliefs as easily as they bend their backs in toil. Fear ensures compliance more effectively than loyalty ever could. Rumors travel faster than royal messengers. A careless word about the king's appetite, a murmur about the queen's faith, a joke about the prince's weakness, all can ignite a chain of accusations. Neighbors denounce neighbors not from conviction, but from fear or greed, or both. Trust becomes the rarest commodity, and betrayal its most abundant substitute. The countryside, far from the bustle of towns, offers no sanctuary. Fields are at the mercy of weather, harvests vanish with a single storm, and villages suffer quietly while taxes remain relentless. Soldiers march through without warning, demanding food or conscripts. Bandits lurk in forests, some former veterans turned predators by desperation. Isolation magnifies vulnerability, leaving peasants exposed to nature and man alike. In noble houses, the curse of lineage spreads invisibly. Generations of intermarriage twist bodies and minds, producing heirs unfit to rule yet demanded by tradition. Tales of Spain's bewitched king echo across Europe, warnings disguised as gossip. Power preserved in blood becomes power corrupted until the dynasty itself rots from within. The people pay the price for the vanity of crowns. Execution grounds never lack audience. Crowds gather not just for justice, but for affirmation, to see that others, not themselves, bear the rope or flame today. Children watch wide-eyed parents cheer vendors sell pies and ale as if it were festival. Death becomes commerce. Cruelty becomes routine. In such normalization, the horror deepens not in spectacle but in its banality. Medicine, if it can be called that, ensures misery. Bloodletting drains the weak mercury, poisons the desperate, trepanation scars the unlucky. Survival is often achieved not by treatment, but by avoiding it altogether. Those who live long enough to recover become rare examples held up as proof of divine mercy rather than evidence of resilience. The very act of healing is more gamble than grace. As evening descends, once more taverns fill with the hum of voices. Laughter masks, despair songs disguise sorrow. A mug of ale dulls fear for a moment, even as it poisons slowly. These fleeting joys are not escapes but distractions, fragile shields against the ever-present specter of mortality. In Tudor England, even happiness is edged with dread. Reflection reveals the truth. Life here is not lived, but endured. Every choice, what to drink, what to say, whom to trust, carries risk. Every day is a lottery where the winning ticket is merely survival until dusk. The marvel is not that so many died young, but that anyone managed to reach old age at all. Existence itself is the ultimate defiance. So when you look back across this single imagined day, remember, Tudor. England was not a chapter of romance and splendor, but a crucible of suffering, where survival was luck, not merit. Disease in your lungs, poison in your bread, rope in your future suspicion, in every glance, this was daily life. And if you wish to continue uncovering the darkest truths hidden in history's shadows, like, share, and subscribe. Because our journey into the past has only begun, and what lies ahead is darker still.